Have you guys ever wondered if you can mix design styles? And if so, how can you mix design styles? Well, today I'm going to go over how you can mix different design styles together. Hi guys, it's Anya from Interior Design Hub back again today with another design style video. Now, today's a little different because I'm actually going over how to mix different styles together. This is a question that gets asked quite a bit, is can I mix interior design styles? How do I mix interior design styles? Should I mix interior design styles? Well, the answer is yes, yes, and yes. A lot of design styles actually are a lot of blends together anyways. Yes, we have set design styles, but in the reality of things, a lot of people end up blending lots of different styles because, let's be honest, our tastes change over time, and generally that means that we start kind of going away from one style and into another style, and we've got to kind of find a way to balance those together. So, how do we start? What is the best way to start thinking about how do I mix design styles? Or maybe you're starting from scratch and you like BOHO and you like SCANDI, or you like Regency style and traditional style, and you're thinking to yourself, how do I really build this so that I could kind of touch on both of those styles? One of the first things you want to do when mixing design styles is think about your color palette. So you really want to limit your base color palette. So by creating a really nice base, you're basically creating a nice uniform foundation for everything else to build upon. You don't want any singular room or any singular space to really stand out from one another. And that is really one of those key tricks to blending styles or even just a cohesive look throughout your space in general. So start with some neutrals that you love that will go with everything. And I really do strongly recommend, thinking about colors in, the light grays or the beiges or the whites or, vanilla tones. What's nice is that by creating a nice limited color palette throughout your house will feel unified no matter what decorations or adornments you put in the space. So the next tip for mixing design style is choosing a unifying pattern. You want to think shapes and motifs that can be used throughout the space. So think like the lines in a sofa, right? If you're going for more angular, kind of keep that angular consistent. If you're going for more curves, keep the curved pattern consistent. By picking a shape or a motif and then keeping that consistent throughout your space, it really helps bring all of the rooms together and keeps them feeling consistent. So even if you're mixing different styles, by keeping some of those unifying patterns traveling throughout your space, it joins them all together so that they actually feel like it's a cohesive look. So if you have assorted decor or maybe like a piece of furniture or a set of furniture that kind of stands out from what you're going for, instead of trying to hide it, make it a focal point, embrace it, and then build your space around that. So what it does is it takes a space that maybe might have felt a little bit disjointed, but because you're building around that kind of oddball item or oddball piece, you're making it the focal point, the discussion point, and you actually turn it into something that doesn't fit into something that's a wow factor, and you're actually using that as a part of the design process to mix those styles together. And to go along with that, one of the really interesting and key things, and it goes back to that, consistent color palette, but matching wood tones and matching wood types. So it's really interesting when you have a bunch of different pieces that are different styles or have different feeling to them. One might be more traditional, one might be more mid-century modern, but when you have them in that same wood tone, it actually makes them work well together because they don't feel disjointed from one another. So if you have a lot of walnut colored pieces, you're good to keep those all together even if they're different styles because they're the same shade. So matching wood types and matching wood tones is a really good trick when mixing design styles together because it keeps them unified. And if for some reason they don't match, but you have these pieces already, especially if you have like a bunch of vintage finds and vintage things that you just really love, but they're all of different tones, you could actually look at, restaining something. So if you like the tone of one piece, but the other ones you have are maybe more of, like a mahogany, and you have something that's maybe more of like a tiger wood or a maple, and you like that better, consider getting it either professionally sanded and restained or looking into maybe a DIY version. And it's definitely easier to go darker than lighter, but I feel like people are more leaning towards the light side. That's why I give that as, my suggestion. The other suggestion for that is, because I've been there before, I had a piece of red, it was like really, really cherry red. Beautiful dresser, serpentine dresser, gorgeous, well-made, hardwood, loved it, loved even the hardware on it. But it was a terrible color. And I did sand it all down, but that red color, it was not going away. And let me tell you, red is one of those tones that it's very hard to kind of refinish, so I ended up painting it. So there's another option too, is, yes, matching wood types, but if that's not an option and you really have a cool piece, then think about painting it as kind of like the next option, if you're willing to do that. Some people that's blasphemy. I get it. Another tip is to choose a few kind of stock, I'm gonna say plainer items, very simple lines, nothing that really screams any one particular style, and then mix those with more unique pieces. So an example of that might be is just a very simple generic sofa that you are now matching with, say, a more traditional side chair, or maybe a more Victorian or Regency or Hollywood glam. But having that kind of basic, timeless line and simple piece, and then bringing in the other styles that you want with it. Another good one is you actually see this all the time, is where you have kind of your nondescript sofa with mid-century modern chairs. And we do see that quite a bit. And that's a really good way of blending styles, but also making sure that you try to keep something as a base. There's always kind of a base when you're mixing styles, and that's a really key factor to really make it work. And with that, think of those pieces as like a solid color, a solid finish, add the layering and texturing and the patterning, especially if you're thinking maybe boho your style, with things on top of that. So throw pillows, blankets, rugs, wall hangings or paintings. All of those things are where you bring in all the patterns if you're doing something that's more boho or eclectic. So basically, your basic furniture won't compete with whatever design styles you're mixing in. How many times can I say basic? Another trick when mixing design styles is to set a bit of a theme for the room. Something like coastal or mountain lodge or beachy. Try to bring a theme in quietly through the space that will then tie the elements of different styles together. Before we get to our last tip, if you don't mind going down below and hitting that thumbs up button, I would greatly appreciate it. All right, moving on. Kind of the biggest thing, I've said it time and time again, I'm gonna say it again now, and that is design rules and design ideas and design suggestions made by me or anyone else are really, they're not rules, and rules are meant to be broken. And that is one of the things with designing and decorating your space, is to always make sure that you remember this is your space and it's your story and it's how you feel. And these are all great tips that you can incorporate, but don't be afraid to bend the rules. I did want to add in one of the things that really help when blending design styles, and that is some design styles work really well together and even work better together than others. So even though I'm saying, bend the rules and do whatever you want, absolutely 100%, but I also want to say that certain design styles work great together. So think coastal and boho, think Hollywood glam and traditional, think mid-century, modern, and industrial. Like, there are certain styles that will naturally blend really, really well together and become their own kind of cohesive look. So that's another tidbit, is that there are certain styles that really work well together. For example, a few years ago, everybody was on the modern farmhouse train. Now, I love French country. Now, modern farmhouse, French country, coastal, even boho-ish can all work together. And if you maybe loved modern farmhouse a few years ago, but now you're like, ooh, that's not so much my style anymore, maybe you kind of blend it with a coastal vibe and you kind of transition a few pieces out to then make it feel a little bit different. And maybe you still like some of the foundational look of it, but not so much of it. So that's another little trick. And if you want to hear more about how to maybe quiet a certain design style, comment below on what style you would like to change in your home and how you would like to attack that. Because I feel like there's probably a few styles that were super, super hot at one point that you kind of want to change, but you don't want to spend all the money to change. So maybe there's a few tips I can offer on that as well. So if you enjoyed this video, I highly recommend you jump over to my timeless design style video. It gets into a lot of those basic foundational pieces that, again, work really well to blend many different styles together. So definitely check that one out next. All right, guys, until next time, bye.